and welcome to another rambling review from Adventures in TV Land. Today we're talking about Beetlejuice, aka Beetlejuice 2. Now, Beetlejuice takes place 36 years after the original movie. Of course, it's been 36 years. 1988 is when the original Beetlejuice came out. It was fairly popular in the movie theaters there and has gone on to become a huge cult classic. Shortly after the movie came out, there was a fairly successful animated show on Fox, I believe. And a few years ago, an even more successful Broadway show opened on Broadway about Beetlejuice. So the general plot of Beetlejuice is that Lydia Dietz, played by Winona Ryder, she is a very successful TV star and podcaster. It has a ghost hunting type show, and she sees ghosts. She literally sees ghosts, but she's taking pills to control that, and it's also hinted at that she's going through somewhat of a midlife crisis. Anyway, her father, Charles Dietz, dies in a plane crash. You kind of see it through a claymation kind of animated sequence. It's time for her to gather her daughter and then her stepmother and everyone, and they return to their home in West Corinth, Connecticut, where the original Beetlejuice movie was set. Now, while there, Lydia and her daughter Astrid, they do get in an argument, and Astrid takes off, and she ends up meeting a young boy in town and falls head over heels in love with him, and that kind of sets a chain reaction of events. And as a result of everything, Lydia must bring back Beetlejuice in order to save her daughter Astrid from the afterlife. And in doing so, when she brings Beetlejuice back, she agrees that she will marry him. And Beetlejuice has been holding a flame for Lydia these several years, and has constantly been catch her attention and be in her thought. That's the overall very general synopsis, kind of the main plot. I'll start off by saying it took me a little while. I had to think about it after seeing the movie, but I did enjoy Beetlejuice. However, while it is a kind of a worthy sequel to the original, because there's a lot of the same, it has a lot of the same tone. I mean, Michael Keaton Douglas, as he will be known here on after, but it's like he hasn't left the character at all. I mean, he falls right in. Beetlejuice is great, but Beetlejuice is only on screen like not even a third of the time in the movie. And so the biggest flaw really of this movie is that it's too convoluted. There are too many things going on, too many subplots. They should have just focused on one thing and been done with it, but they didn't. There's a whole subplot, and I feel bad because the characters involved with this they're just wasted, because you could cut them out, and that means nothing to the story. Find out that Beetlejuice was married back during the time of the plague in Europe. He was a grave digger, and he married a witch, and she was literally a soul sucker. But as he was dying, he ended up killing her, and now she's come back to life, or come back from the afterlife, and she's out to get a revenge on Beetlejuice. So there's that subplot. There's a subplot between Lydia and her fiance, who many people just suspect is using her just for money and everything like that, who doesn't really care for her. There's a subplot with Delia, the mother-in-law, played by Catherine O'Hara, who is just kind of somewhat distraught over the loss of Charles, and trying to show her affection and love for him and her career. I can't even think of the other. There's like two or three other kind of subplots. Some of the ghosts, they actually get out. They escape from the afterlife. There's a porthole at one point that's left open, and they escape. That causes chaos, and all this stuff is going on. And it's too much. The movie is, in my opinion, was way too long. The first 45 minutes of the film, it moves very, very slowly. There's a kind of a slow build. It's a slow build, but at the same time, you don't get to know enough about some of the characters that are hinted at and to become important later on in the movie's plot. For instance, Lydia's her deceased husband, Astrid's father. That's another subplot, but you don't learn anything about him, but he plays a pivotal role later on in the movie. The movie, in short, too convoluted. It's bloated. I will say I didn't mind it at all, but I will say that Lydia's character, her character is much different than she was in the original movie. Some of that, can be, to change into life and over. There's been almost 40 years that have gone by since the last time we saw this character. However, some of it isn't, and so it is somewhat of a criticism because there are certain things that she does that it just doesn't seem characteristic of what Lydia would do at the core of herself. Delia, Catherine O'Hara, I like Catherine O'Hara, but unfortunately in this movie, like, you would have thought over time, like, her character would have had some growth a little bit, some sort of development, and instead she's become more extreme. She's like she was in the first movie, but it's as though she didn't learn anything from that, and she's a more extreme version of herself from that movie. And it's also in being too long. There's a sequence at the end of the film that goes on way too long. It ties into like what happened, a sequence in the first movie, and it's somewhat similar, but in this film it's expanded upon. It's like double, and it goes on. What should have been like maybe a minute-long sequence is like 5 minutes long, and it's way too much. While the movie is bloated and very cluttered, and there's a lot going on, and it's too long, it does feel like a sequel to Beetlejuice. It doesn't feel like it's something, it doesn't feel like 36 years have gone by from the first movie and this movie. If this movie had come out, if you watch these films back to back, they flow together. And a lot of that has to do, in all honesty, with the performance of Michael Keaton Douglas. Beetlejuice is just one of the great characters that he's performed on film, and he does a great job at it. And I wish the movie had more Beetlejuice in it. It doesn't. It would have been a better movie if it had, because Beetlejuice is what ties the whole film together. And I wish the film would have focused even more upon him than it does. So that is Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. This has been another rambling review from Adventures in TV Land. Thank you for watching. Until next time, that's a wrap.